Hi, what's up? Hello. My name is Liz, and you're watching For Booking Out Loud. So, let's be realistic. I have been struggling for 2 months now on how to present my reading year that was 2020. I had such a good reading year. I read over 200 books, and I had so many favorite books of the year too because of that. And it just seemed so overwhelming. However, I think I have it down. I'm going to do this video a tier ranking of my 20 favorite books of 2020. And then I will do a stats and survey video next in order to really give you an overview of what I liked, what I didn't like, what my reading year went, or how my reading year went, and just all of those good things. So let's get into it. The screen will be over here for my rankings, and awesome. So as a start, my top tier is going to be rethink your top 10. And this means I need to rearrange my top 10 with this book in it. Something has to go, however much it hurts, and this book or these books will have to go in. And then going down, everyone needs to read. So it's still an amazing book and one of my favorites. However, it doesn't go in my top 10. Nonetheless, I believe everyone should read this book, no matter what. And then go-to recommendation is going to be more, I don't think everyone needs to read it. I very much enjoyed it, and it'll be one of my go-to recommendations in the future. Kind of self-explanatory. Finally, my opinion, a wonderful book. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was awesome. However, I don't think I'll be reaching for this book specifically for recommendations. And then finally, and I don't know if any book will be in there, but we'll see, rethinking your ranking system. So how did this book end up on my top 20? And maybe it should honestly be a little lower. We'll see. I'm not going to go into any order with these books specifically. I think I'll try to link similar books together. So let's just go. I have 20 books. You have Cemetery Boys. I decided to add The Long Walk by Stephen King or Richard Bachman in here. I didn't like the whole book that had all 4 novels in it particularly, but The Long Walk is going to be one of my go-tos for Stephen King's in the future, and it was a favorite of this year. I have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, The Only Good Indians, Sheets, graphic novel, beautiful, Uzumaki by Junji Ito, World War Z by Max Brooks. I decided to add that one in there because I snuck it in near the end of December as a reread, and it's still one of my top 10 books of all time, point blank. Then I have Station 11 by Emily St. John Mendel, Homegoing by Ya Gassi, The Silent Patient, The Poisonwood Bible, The Nickel Boys, The Vanishing Half, The Silence of the Girls, The Warmth of Other Suns, The Unraveling of Cassidy Holmes, and Black Sun. All right, so to get into this, and I do apologize, this is my first ranking video, so we'll see how it goes. I think I'm going to do the nonfiction first. So Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain was a book I read earlier this year and finally finished in the summer, and it was actually a book club together with a lot of other teachers. I thought it was great, a wonderful book. I don't know if I would have it as a go-to recommendation for others. And I don't believe everyone needs to read it. If you're a teacher, you should read it, but they're different. Why are all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria? Again, it was a book I read because teaching, and it is focused on younger kids and students. However, I think a lot of people should read it because it's very informative. It's very overreaching on racial relations in not only schools, but the argument on why adults need to speak to kids more about race and normalize that concept. So I would put this in I would put this in everyone needs to read. And then I believe I have, oh, there it is. The Warmth of Other Suns is my first Isabel Wilkerson book, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I ended up reading it over audio, and she just has a way to release information in a narrative sense, even though it is nonfiction, and yet jam in so many powerful facts, figures, and personal stories. So I would say everyone needs to read. Maybe not necessarily rethink your top 10. But there you go. Let's go historical fiction, because a lot of these books end up as historical fiction. So the first one in itself is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I fell in love with it. It was absolutely phenomenal. Cried, point blank. And I would say it's above Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together and what everyone needs to read. I believe I've finally realized that I love this book, but I already have a Taylor Jenkins Reid book in my top 10, which is Daisy Jones and the Six. And I think I like Daisy Jones and the Six just a tad more than The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but still phenomenal. Homegoing. Oh my gosh. This book surprised the heck out of me. I have been trying to read it for so long, and I finally got to it this year, and it was beautiful. Everyone needs to read. Rethink your top 10. I think I'm going to put it in Rethink Your Top 10 for now, but it's gorgeous, point blank. And then I have the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingston. But I read this at the beginning of the year. Again, I was trying to focus on my physical TBR, but just kind of fell through. However, this book surprised me so much. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did. I didn't think I'd cry throughout different parts of this book as much as I did, and it got to me. I think I'm gonna put it in my go-to recommendation list, just because I think if you like historical fiction, you're fascinated about different social aspects, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. And then I have The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And this book, again, surprised me. I've been meaning to read a Colson Whitehead book for a while. However, this was my first one, and it just blew me away. Hence why it's on this list, or any book that's on this list, really. However, The Nickel Boys itself really got to me, and the fact that it's based on a historically accurate reform school for boys, and all these things happen to them, and then the ending though. This book is going to definitely be in Everyone Needs to Read, and I think it goes just below Evelyn Hugo, but beautiful, beautiful book. And then I have The Vanishing Half by Bennett. it was amazing. I loved the way that Bennett really went through generations, went through point of views, and just beautifully wrote the story about two twin sisters. Their life ended up completely different. So I think I'm going to put this in a go-to recommendation above the Poisonwood Bible, but I don't think everyone would appreciate this book, or more accurately, not everyone would enjoy this book. And then I think this is my last historical fiction, The Silence of the Girls by Pat Parker. This book has been on my audio for so long, and I've just been meaning to get to it for so long. And then I'm so glad I finally did this year. I think it's going to go at the bottom of everyone needs to read, just because it is such an important book, such an important look at how classics and historical books that quote unquote you need to read often forget females or minorities. And so it's a really good story. And then I think I'm going to go to The Unraveling of Cassidy Holmes. I'm not quite sure if it's counted as a historical fiction book, but it is set partly in the past, so I'm just going to go with it. I would put it more first place of my opinion, a wonderful book. This book truly surprised me. I loved it. I love the concept of going through different perspectives and the look at depression, sexual assault and harassment. And it was quite well done, but there were parts of the book that I personally didn't appreciate. Again, minuscule and always kind of with the asterisks, because it was one of my top 20 books of this year. But I don't think I would recommend this book to everyone. And then in saying that, let's go to my one graphic novel, Sheets. Honestly, I think it's going to go to the top of my go-to recommendation. I absolutely loved it. I loved the drawing. I loved just every part of this book and how it's a coming of age. However, I do know not everyone likes graphic novels. Therefore, this one is going to be one of my top recommended graphic novels of this year. Didn't make me cry. Was very more like happy emotional while I read it, and sometimes you just need a book like that. And then since it's a ghost, let's go into horror. Why not? So, Cemetery Boys. Actually, I don't know if that... No, it's not horror. But it has ghosts in it, so let's count it. I would say... maybe not everyone needs to read it. Maybe... did I like Sheets or Cemetery Boys more? Let's go Cemetery Boys. This is a romantic, trans powerful, Hispanic Latinx kind of book. And it was very powerful, but also very predictable. However, if you enjoy romance, if you enjoy YA fantasy type books, it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and I would highly recommend it more than a lot of other YA fantasy romantic books I've read. And then going on to horror, let's go The Long Walk by Stephen King. Great. I guess it's a short book, maybe not a novella. It is a couple hundred pages long. I'm going to put at the top of my opinion, a wonderful book. It's definitely a dystopian-esque book. It's definitely very horrific, but it's more psychological horror. And this one truly surprised me. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did this year. But I know not everyone likes, first of all, horror. Not everyone likes psychological horror, and not everyone likes Stephen King's reading style. It is a Richard Bachman book, so it's a tiny bit different than when he's under the name Stephen King. However, you still have those great characterizations. You still have that great setting. And it's a wonderful book, point blank. Okay, let's just skip over Ninth House right now and go to The Only Good Indians. This was my first Stephen Graham Jones book, and I'm so disappointed in myself. It took me so long to get to a Stephen Graham Jones books, because after this one, every other book that I've read by him has been a great reading experience. However, I picked The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones over some of the other ones because, first of all, it was my first, and second of all, it was just written beautifully and always in a way that you don't really know where the book is going. However, you know something bad is going to happen. It's ominous. It's turn the page always. I think I read this one in a day, honestly. But I would go and put it at the top of my go-to recommendation, just because, again, I know not everyone likes horror, and it is kind of graphic in some parts. So it's not going to be everyone's like. And I don't think it's part of my top 10, but maybe some of my top 10 horrors, that's for sure. And then, of course, we have Uzumaki. I've talked way too much about Junji Ito's work this year, and so we're just going to ignore some of that and know that it goes maybe on the other side of Homegoing. Goes right up to that top tier right there. And then we have World War Z, which you already know it's one of my top 10s, so it just goes up there. I don't need to rethink anything because it's there. Point blank. And then I guess The Silent Patient is a mystery book, and I really did enjoy it at the time reading it. It has a great ending that surprised me, but I don't know if I would put it in a different reading year in my top 20 of 2020. Maybe not rethink it so much as more just it's lower than a lot of other of these books. So I guess maybe I should put it right there because it is, in my opinion, still a wonderful, wonderful book. However, I don't know if it would be my go-to recommendation for mystery. Still a good book. And then let's just go Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is not my first Leigh Bardugo book, but it was the only one I think that I read last year. And it was awesome. Point blank. I loved it. Hated the ending though and the cliffhanger because it is part of a series. But I really enjoyed how bits and pieces of the mystery in, how we time changed a lot. So I would say right there. Go-to recommendation, third book. Station 11. It was one of the last books I read last year, and it blew me away, and I couldn't really explain to you why. There were so many places where I highlighted and I just fell in love with Emily St. John Mendel's writing style. I loved this different take on an apocalyptic world where you saw the perspective of pre-apocalypse, and then you saw the perspective of post-apocalypse 20 so years later, and just how it's affecting the same people you're following throughout it. I don't think I'll put it in my top 10, but it goes at the tippy top of, I think everyone should read it. It was just that good. Point blank. One of my best apocalyptic books I've ever read. It's not horrific. It is sad at times. There you go. There you go. And then Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. What can I say about this book? It was It is the first in an upcoming series she's continuing on. It's an epic fantasy, and it's based on Native American myths and roots. And it was just, you start it page 1 and you do not stop reading it until page, 500? Maybe a little less than that. But the action just keeps going, the mystery just keeps going, the excitement of the story, the love of the characters. It was gorgeous. And I would say I'm going to put it in the top of my go-to recommendation, just because, yeah, how else can I say that? I loved it. I think it's an amazing fantasy novel and people should read it, but maybe not everyone would enjoy it, so just recommending. All right, and this is how, yeah. I'm glad I did this because I've been struggling to try to find books that I like, and this really helped me organize my thoughts. I knew Uzumaki was going to be in my top 10, of course World War Z, but Homegoing was great, and I honestly thought after looking at all these books, I would have put Station 11 and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in there. However, I'm very, very happy with this. We'll see. So, thank you so much for watching, and please look forward to the stats and reading survey coming up soon to just summarize the rest of my reading year, not top 20 books. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.